Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're jumping right into one of the biggest shifts happening in our world, the move to clean, renewable energy. We're going to break this whole thing down and get a clear picture of what our energy future could really look like.
But first, I want to start with a big question, and I mean a really big one. When you flip on a light switch, do you ever stop and think, will the power always be there? Is our energy future actually secure? It's a question that honestly affects every single one of us.
For more than a century, the answer to that has been pretty simple: fossil fuels. They've powered everything: our homes, our cars, our entire modern world. But there's another side of that story, a hidden price tag that we're only now really starting to grasp. So what exactly is that cost? Well, that brings us right to our first big topic, our fossil fuel problem. Because to really get why we need to change, we've got to understand what we're dealing with in the first place.
Okay, so this slide really lays it out. Fossil fuels? They're responsible for more than 75% of all greenhouse gas emissions and a whopping 90% of the world's CO2. But it goes way beyond just climate change. We're talking about serious air pollution, crazy price swings that mess with the economy, and, let's be honest, the simple fact that this stuff is going to run out eventually.
Take a look at this number, 80%. Just let that sink in. Over 80% of global emissions come from just two sectors, energy and industry. That tells you, right there, that if we want to make a real difference for the planet, this is exactly where we have to start. All right, but enough about the problem, right? Let's talk about the solution. And that brings us to the promise of solar. This is where the story starts to get really exciting. So, why solar? Well, for one, it's the fastest growing renewable energy source on the planet. And, as you can see, the cost to actually install it is dropping like a rock. That makes it a super practical choice that can slash electricity bills for families and schools. And this is huge. It can bring power to remote places that are completely off the grid. It's about giving everyone access to energy.
And wow, this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? I mean, look at the comparison. Fossil fuels, high emissions. Solar, super low. Fossil fuel costs keep going up while solar costs keep coming down. One is a finite resource, the other is basically as unlimited as the sun. It's just a no-brainer for a climate-friendly future.
And this isn't just about the environment. It's a powerful economic argument, too. The shift to renewables creates tons of new jobs. It gives countries energy security so they're not tied to wild fuel prices. And get this, over 90% of new renewable projects are now actually cheaper than building new fossil fuel plants.
Of course, if it were all that easy, we'd have switched over completely by now. So let's be real for a minute and talk about the actual barrier standing in the way of this clean energy future.
And a huge piece of the puzzle is, well, it's us. It's people. This chart kind of breaks it down. You've got the cost-conscious, that's almost half of us, who are interested but just can't afford the initial cost. Then there's the informed, who have the money but maybe not the motivation. And finally, the inflexible, who are just resistant to change, period. You can't reach all these groups with the same message. This leads to a really tricky situation called the adoption dilemma. See, in some places, electricity from oil and gas is super cheap because it's subsidized. So if you're a family living there, switching to solar just doesn't seem to make financial sense right now. But that low price is hiding the huge long-term risks for everyone, like energy insecurity and climate damage. And that brings us to this quote. Let's just let it sink in for a second. Cheap electricity now doesn't guarantee a secure energy future. It's such a crucial point. Those short-term savings can give us a false sense of security, making us put off the changes we need to make, which only leads to bigger problems down the line.
So what this all means is that our strategy has to be smarter. We're not just planning for today. We need a plan that's flexible enough to adapt to a changing climate. And that, believe me, adds a whole new layer of complexity to everything.
But to see how this can actually work, let's look at who's getting it right. These success stories from around the globe prove that big-time solar is already happening. I'm talking about Morocco's gigantic Noor solar complex. It's big enough to power over 1 million homes, or the huge projects in the UAE, and even local projects in Jordan that are cutting power bills for regular folks and schools. The proof is out there. We can do this.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. There's a twist. A recent study looking ahead to 2025 found something pretty mind-blowing. Climate change itself, the very problem we're trying to solve, can actually mess with our solution.
Shifting weather patterns could mean some places get more sun, while others might get less. So what do we do about that? It means our strategy has to be tough and resilient. We need to plan using future climate models, not just old data. We have to watch what's happening locally, and we absolutely have to diversify. We can't just rely on solar. We need wind and hydro too. And we have to combine all of it with battery storage, so the power is there 24/7, whether the sun is shining or not.
I know, this all sounds massive and maybe even a little overwhelming. But this big energy transition doesn't just happen in government buildings or corporate boardrooms. And that brings us to the most important part, your role in all of this.
The path forward is really about tackling the challenges that are still out there, from finding affordable ways to finance this stuff to fighting misinformation. But the cool thing is, for every challenge, there's a solution being worked on. We're building smarter grids, creating tech that lasts longer, and improving battery storage literally every day. The progress is nonstop. And here's what all that progress can mean for you personally. How does a 40 to 60% cut in your household electricity bill sound? Yeah, that's a pretty powerful reason to get on board. It's better for the planet, and it's definitely better for your wallet.
At the end of the day, every single one of us has a part to play. From the small choices we make every day to the bigger policies we decide to support, it all adds up. And together, we can absolutely build that future we've been talking about. One with cleaner air, cheaper energy, and a safer, more stable planet for the next generation.
Which brings us to one last thought. Solar power isn't some sci-fi technology from the future. It's here. It's happening right now. So the real question we have to ask ourselves is, are we ready for it?